So for this video, I'm going to be talking about interest rates, and I'm going to pull up my PowerPoint real fast. And the first thing we're going to talk about is the introduction, and the introduction states the best way to understand interest rates is to think of them as the price of using money. The interest rate you pay on your mortgage or car loan is the cost of using the bank's money for a period of time. Interest rates are set like other prices in the marketplace based on supply or demand. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the explanation, and this simply states that the interest rates can be quoted for different time periods, such as monthly or annually, and expressed in several different forms. Because interest rates can be quoted for periods of less than 1 year, they often need to be converted into an effective annual rate, otherwise known as EAR or EAR, or annual percentage rate, otherwise known as APY. EAR or APY is the total amount of interest that will be earned at the end of 1 year. And this was written by Burke, DeMarzo, and Harford in 2015. And then the next thing we're going to move on to is the application, which covers entry level, mid level, and executive level. And the first thing is entry level, and these people, like I've stated before, are pretty much people right out of college, and they pretty much do the interest rates on federal student loans. And this is an example of one that I found off of Google, and it just basically shows it throughout the whole entire year. And then mid-level, like I said, is a manager going over it, making sure they do everything correctly. Everything is shown correctly. And then executive level basically just, like I said, state or covers CEOs, business partners, things like that. And it basically, they just make sure that every account type and the national average and the banks and then the credit unions all match, and make sure that the APY is or shows that it varies with each bank and so forth. The next thing we're going to cover is an ethical issue, and this was written by, I believe you say it C, but I'm not exactly sure, don't quote me on that. And it basically just states that key factors drive student loan debt nationally, make it an almost universal American experience. To start, government grants and aid have failed to keep pace with rising tuition costs. There is an uneven growth between college tuition and the amount of financial aid made available to students. Pell Grants now cover less than 1/3 the cost of attending a 4-year public school compared to the 1980s, when it covered more than half the cost. In 2015, the New York Federal Reserve Bank conducted research in which they found that the flood of easy federal money into higher education predictably led to higher tuition and fees, and for every dollar of subsidized loans, tuition went up by 65 cents. This is known as the pass-through effect, which is prevalent in expensive private institutions where universities that serve a larger population of average students continually raise tuition to absorb as much of the new federal money as they can. Excuse me. So it's basically just saying that because there are more students going to college, that they're starting to raise their rates to earn more cash, when in fact they don't really need to do that, and therefore it's putting students into debt. The next thing we have is the Bible verse, and this is from Leviticus 19:13, which says, "Do not defraud or rob your neighbor, and do not hold back the wages of a hired worker overnight." So I thought this one fit really well with the ethical issue, which simply states that schools and banks are pretty much robbing the students because they are therefore raising the rates and interest rates, which are therefore putting the students into debt. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is references. And like I said before, the first one is Burke, DeMarzo, and Harford from 2015 from the Fundamentals of Corporate Finance. The second one is Victoria C. from 2017 from the Ethics of Student Loan Debt, and then the link is directly below it. And then the last one is Leviticus 19:13. So I hope you all enjoyed this presentation, and I will see you next time.